Good morning, everyone. This is Kathy Mason from MasonWorks Marketing here on Conscious Business Zone with my friend, Dr. Joe Delaney. Hi, Dr. Joe. And I didn't know he told me that his other name is Dr. Lightheart. I love that. Of course you are.
Well, even though I've got a miserable looking face, I've got a nice light heart. Ah,
Well, I know that we're going to have a wonderful time today because we both are committed to uplifting and bringing a different perspective of empowerment to everyone that watches the show and everyone we meet in every way we can, right?
yeah, absolutely.
So, for people that don't know you, we have to let them know that we might get serious at a few moments, but not all the time, because you have a PhD in medicine and you're a neuroscientist and you're an independent consultant in lifestyle medicine. And you're also a university lecturer in evolutionary and developmental psychology and a renowned authority on subtle energy medicine, breathwork, and mind-body connection. So we might get a little heady, not a whole lot, but we might get a little because this lightheartedness is going to give us a chance to experience reality in a elevated way.
I agree. Yeah, and when people read those things out, I think, who's she talking about? But because honestly, I look back and I think, how did I get all these things? And it's miraculous, really. Because my story is, as you know, Kathy, I was very, very ill for a long time. Um, I suffered from stress and anxiety and depression and kept having panic attacks. The only thing that would solve those temporarily was to get as drunk as a skunk, really. So that's how I medicated myself for years, and then the drink got hold of me. To cut a long story short, I lost absolutely everything. I lost my job, my position in the National Health Service in the UK, which was quite high. I was in charge of a haematology department, and I got the sack for being drunk on duty. And fair enough, yeah. But what actually happened to me was I then lost everything. I lost my wife and kids. I lost my liberty, and in the end, I lost my home. So I was homeless, believe it or not. And in that situation, I tried to take my own life because I just didn't know what the hell was going on. And people used to say to me, Joe, you're so clever. You've got all these qualifications. Why can't you just like think your way out of it? And that was the problem. My thinking was the problem because I was in a state of denial, really. And the thing about denial is everybody around you can see it except yourself. And we've already touched on this, Kathy. The basic problem was fundamentally I was a frightened child at depth, you know. And because my head wouldn't allow that, because it was full of academic nonsense, right? I kept talking myself out of it, to be honest with you. So in a sort of strange way, it's almost like I planned this really, because in the attempt to do myself in, something changed in me. Now, whether that was an epiphany or, I don't know, but um, I saw the light, and I found in that moment of going or coming back or whatever it was, I can't really explain it. But the peace that passeth all understanding descended upon me, and temporarily I understood everything about everything. It was so beautiful. In fact, there's a feeling coming in now, and when I talk about it, it sort of comes back really. Now, I can't explain it other than it's a feeling. And what's happening to me now is, and I'm always honest about what happens is, I've got a thing going up my spine now. And what this means, I don't try and put a label on it or anything because that just confuses things. But I get a feeling that this thing is saying to me, this higher intelligence or deeper intelligence, go on, son, you're on the right path, carry on the good work. And that's all I live my life by now. I mentioned the word to you before, extemporaneousness, because I like big words. And it simply means to live life without a script, or even to trust this feeling and not to manage anything because it will send me the information upon which I need to act. And for the last 33 years of my life, I've not had a drink, I've not taken any other mind altering substances, and I try and live a life as clean as possible. Am I a saint? Nowhere near. because some of the thoughts that go on in my mind would still get me locked up, you know. But to be honest with you, Kathy, in myself, I feel well. I'm not really out to save the world or really help anybody else as such, other than if I'm truthful with myself and leading a happy and joyful life, other people seem to benefit from it.
Oh, well, I love everything you do, and I'm so glad to have you here because I do think that the scientific method, the Newtonian perspective, is changing now to a more quantum perspective. And I think that what you're doing, whether you claim it or not, is you're helping bridge that academic Newtonian reality back into spirituality. I felt when you just said that, I felt it. I felt a cold, an energy shift for myself. So you don't realize how powerful your shift is. It actually, even over the airwaves, I'm in Colorado, you're in England, in London. So I mean, we're all connected at such a high level, and what you're showing is joy, love, happiness, and self care. Really, are the keys to empowerment. Because if you don't feel good, you can't do your stuff. You can't share your genius, right?
Yeah. I agree, and I think something else that people get mixed up, in my view, is that we can't empower anybody else, but we can facilitate an environment where they have to take the action themselves to empower themselves. Otherwise, it's almost like you become reliant and dependent on somebody or something outside of yourself. So the way I see this is, it's almost as if something in the heart of hearts opens up and starts to expand. And as it starts to expand, it comes up, if you like, upon like obstructions and blockages. They're just little learning points, or if you like, it's karma or whatever the hell you want to call it. It's just to stop, take a step back, and almost ask your innate intelligence or your heart, what is it that you're trying to show me here? And it might be something as simple as where somebody's asked you to do a favor and you've said yes, but at the heart, you really wanted to say no. Sometimes we have to go back and say, look, I've changed my mind. I'm sorry about that. And as soon as we do the right action, it's almost like the flow reconnects and carries us forward to the next adventure, if you like.
That's perfect. That's perfect. So I want to ask about as people are clearing energy, thought forms are showing up right now. And in fact, this is the gift of this time period, I think, is that you get to see the layers of your stinking thinking. Um, or your judgment, whatever you've labeled it. And it could be from childhood wounds, or it could be from just cultural, even. There's so many layers of all of this. Do you see that also, that people are really starting to get brighter and allowing more of their love of themselves in right now?
I see two sides. I see there's people who are falling apart at the seams. There's more and more anger, more and negativity, and they're the people who are basically, let's call it what it is. It's like a victim consciousness
Mhm.
where they feel that it's stuff on the outside that's causing them to feel unhappy, right? And there's other people now who've almost like seen the light, for want of a better way of saying it, and they realize that they're 100% responsible for the way they process information. And that's it, really. It's the way we process information. So in the end, it's really about perception, how we see the world. And as you know, we don't see the world as it is, we see the world as we are. And that means you and I can be in exactly the same circumstances, seeing completely two different worlds. So my thing was, I was talking to somebody else before. If we don't go within, we go without. And I know now that the period we're going through, some people call this the ascension period, or the Kali Yuga, if you're into yoga and stuff. We're probably at one of the lowest points that humanity could get to, for a reason. It's on purpose, you know. And if we can see it's a positive thing, as long as we understand that it's the way we handle energy and our emotional state that determines success or failure. Now, Kathy, I didn't want to do that because I was a real victim. I would blame anybody on the outside of me because I was afraid to turn around and look at myself, and that's the truth of it, really. So I know now that this could be very positive if you take it as a fact-finding and fact-facing process. But in order to do that, you've got to have the courage to turn around and face yourself and clean your own side of the street.
Perfect.
And that's what's basically saved my life. And I'll say here now is, where did I get this information and where did I get the instructions on to follow? And it was in Alcoholics Anonymous, you know.
Wow.
And I went through the 12-step recovery program of Alcoholics Anonymous. I was desperate enough to follow it to the letter. And when it came out of the 12th step, I haven't had a drink since, and my whole perspective on life has changed.
Isn't that fabulous? I love this. So how much of do you think the human suffering lessons? I call it lessons more than truth, because it's our perception of what happened, and then we gave it a message. How much of this is early childhood issues that your inner child needs to work out, do you think?
Yeah, I think it's massive, the early childhood thing, but I also think that that's a program that we picked before we incarnated. I think that this is a soul thing. This is where I'm up to, and whether I'm right or wrong, I'm happy in myself thinking this way, you know. So, yeah, anybody can develop your own concept as long as it works for you, really. So, I think that at a soul level, which is basically the invisible counterpart, right, that sort of met up with the ego, if you like, before we came here. There was a soul ego contract that went on, and it's almost like a collaboration, really. So I think both parties benefit from this. And I think that the soul needs the human vehicle in order to feel what human life's all about. So the soul itself is learning and the ego self is learning at the same time. So it's a co-creation, really. And we don't get taught this, you see, from an early age. And that's really what I really see very clearly now. Just let me say this, it's just being recorded. I just need to click a button here. Just bear with me one sec. Okay. Yeah, sorry about that. Where I see things are up to now is that we're being given the opportunity to see life from a completely different perspective. And I think I have an even though the world seems mad at the moment, I think there's a complete disintegration going on purpose so that we can pick up the bits that are left and construct something completely new. Now, the thing about something new is it's not like the old. We're not revolving, we're actually evolving. And I think creativity and novelty means new. It doesn't mean rebadging, you know. And we feel a lot of businesses now, they know they've got to change, but they don't have the tools of creativity. So they keep going back to the past methods and trying to polish those up. It's not going to, in my view, it's not working. We can see that, you know. There's some very, very intelligent people who work off the past and it looks good for a week or two, but it's not going to go any further than that, in my humble opinion, which is
Yeah.
never humble, by the way.
Well, I love all the indigenous methods of using a circle. And before we came on, I mentioned we're going from a pyramid to a circle, and you said a sphere. Do you want to share what that is? Because the circle work, I was part of a grandmother's circle for a little while. That it's original indigenous people from all over the world. So it's not just Native American, it's all over the world. And this beautiful German woman who's got a PhD in it sent me all these papers about how to form a circle and how to use it in business. I mean, that's what she does as a consultant, is she comes in, and so it's very similar to what the IT industry has done, where they make these small teams that go in and work as teams to fulfill an aspect, and then other teams join them, which I think is working very well in the IT industry, but the rest of the business world still has hierarchy where, this person at the very top just says yes, no. They don't see the benefit of all the things that people down below see. And those people are on the front lines doing all the work. They know what's going on. And you'll see that in academia, you'll see that in business. Could you explain what you meant about a sphere versus a circle?
Certainly, yeah. I feel deeper. See, I think that the heart, or if you like, the heart of hearts, the soul, that's the core, because core means heart, And I think what I see then is I see that the heart's connected to the 12 cranial nerves in the brain, you know. But you look at the cranial nerves, they're not on flat paper. It's actually a sphere. So the sphere is basically the brain, you know. And so the whole point I see is that what's actually happening is as this new quantum consciousness comes in, all these potentials are now opening up. And because what happened to me in 1987, Kathy, was it was the time of something called the Great Harmonic Convergence. I didn't have a clue what that was. All I knew is I was trying to kill myself and throw me off bridges because there was so much information coming in. The problem was I couldn't emotionally handle it, you see. So if you like, I call it the Christ Center. And I'm not a religious person, but there's Christ. There's the 12 disciples. Now, the 12 disciples to me, it's easy for me to look at it like this. They represent different skills and different abilities and different streams of consciousness and different frequencies as well. And I think we've been misdirected away from our intuitive information, and we've basically been in a headlock, just taking on board more and more knowledge. And that's the problem. I think that we need in creativity, we need to work beyond knowledge now and just work from our innate intuitive moving, if you like. It's like a movement. The information in me emerges up from my heart and into me head. It's not me head sending information down to me body to say, yeah. So to go back to this, imagine sitting in the middle of a sphere and deciding in which direction you want to go in. Well, you can either, it depends, you can choose, you can go north by northwest, or you can go north by northeast, and there's slightly different changes you can make. But not only is the north, south, east, and west, there's also up and down and side from side as well. Are you with me? Is this making sense? So rather than it being circle, because I always feel that a circle just keeps revolving in the same old stuff. The spherical model is a spiral dynamic, and it's creative because it's a feeling that's driving the next action. But your head's going to come in to say, oh, we can't do that because the last time we did that, it went wrong. That's the problem, you see. The head wants to come in and block the creativity. In order to be creative and to be good at it, you've got to develop this trust in this higher consciousness or deeper consciousness, and basically work on faith and trust. Now, not religion, but religion have said this. Faith without works is dead. So you can have all these new ideas coming in, but unless you take action on them, nothing ever changes. I don't know whether that's helped or made
Oh,
sense at all.
yes, that was perfect. And I do these soul illumination readings, and I did one for someone, and I saw the sphere because in the past, there'd been a lot of sacred geometry images, which are pretty much are two-dimensional, but you can sort of see a three-dimensional aspect. This looked like fourth dimensional. It was a pattern within a pattern within a pattern, not a fractal either. This person has synesthesia, so she already is seeing, her senses are alive to lots of other things and we can't see. So I thought that was fascinating when you said that. It was like I could picture her sphere right there. Perfect. That makes sense.
It's also led me into Kabbalistic stuff as well, the Kabbalah,
Oh, uh-huh.
and there used to be the ancient Kabbalah was a 10 sphere model, right? And I think recently, apparently in 2001, um, two more spheres came back off online
Oh,
that had been obstructed. And some people think that that was the fall from grace. and the obstruction was causing us to live from our heads rather than a whole person or full spectrum approach. So these two spheres are back on, which takes us back to 12 spheres, So the model clicks in again. Because I always see like a 13, let's call it a dimension model, where in the middle is the heart, and then we've got these other 12 spheres then. That's where my head is. And there's a theory called the theory of multiple intelligences by Howard Gardner, and he got up to eight, I think, eight intelligences. But I feel from what I've just said that there's actually 12, and the 12 cranial nerves linked to the 12 meridians. So we've got an electrical 12, and then we've got a magnetic 12 now. So we're back into quantum consciousness now. So the trick would be able to be the master of where you want the information to come in next. Otherwise, it's a bit like the 12 disciples all in one room, babbling with each other, right? And overpowering the master. And I think what this is about is self-mastery, right? Where the master says, hang on, you lot, shut up now. Peter, you're good at doing things with rocks. This job demands a rock worker, so you go and sort that out. Andrew, you're good with finances, like you've just said before. So the model I see, Kathy, is like a 13, 1 plus 12. And I think that when little groups get together, then they link up then with another 1 plus 12, 1 plus 12, right across the planet.
Beautiful.
That's how I see this works, really.
Beautiful. Well, Lynn McTaggart put together a book, and then she just this spring had an event here in Colorado where hundreds of people came, and her philosophy is the power of eight, that if you get groups of 8 people together with positive intention, that'll affect the consciousness of all humanity. And I think there's aspects of this 8, 12, 13, however you want to look at it, that we're just getting started. I wanted to ask about the heart connection, because I know that when I first started my cleanup, I'm still here, so I'm not done.
Yeah.
But I took a class where I cried all weekend, writing a letter to my dead father. What is it about having to activate the heart through that sadness, or it could be anger too, I imagine, but what is that about starting the engine with a strong emotion? What do you think we're designed that way?
Yeah, I think that we have to get to a rock bottom. We have to get to almost like in Alcoholics Anonymous, they say God is sometimes the gift of desperation. So you have to come to a point of real emotional turmoil, because there's another thing that says before serenity must come emotional turmoil. So there's no way of getting away from this, really. And I think humanity have got to face this now themselves, everybody, where we're going to be sort of presented with stuff that we've repressed and haven't taken the correct action on at the time. So we'll be given opportunities where a similar, not the same, but a similar pattern will come up and present itself. Now, if you're not aware, then you'll jump in and you'll just do the same thing over and over again. Mindfulness means to feel the feeling, and before you take an action, create some space and go backwards so that you can almost become objective about your own subjectivity. And that's when that's when I started to learn that every time I got an emotional trigger, the idea was to don't do anything other than just sit down, ask your intuition, what is it you're trying to say? And they'll play the whole picture, and that might bring with it then a release. The thing about it, Kathy, is nobody likes uncomfortable feelings, so we're always jumping in to try and fix them with a meal or with a drink, or to release it through sex or gambling or something to try and dissipate the feeling. If you haven't learned the lesson from why the feeling's blocked, it will come back again. Now, with the shift of consciousness that's going on now, it's coming back quicker and quicker because that mirror, that reflective mirror of karma, is getting closer and closer and closer. So it's almost like instant karma now, where we get kicked off the bottom 10 times a day to say, will you sit down and just look at what you're being presented with?
Oh,
So I don't know whether that's helped at all.
oh yeah, that was perfect. And the opportunity is if you stuff it again, you just get it just comes back in. So it's almost like you're on a treadmill, and the treadmill, it's like, oh, I fell off, or I'll go get a sandwich. And you come back and it's still there. And it repeats, it's a gift, even though it's annoying, it's an annoying gift, but it is a gift that comes back into your consciousness until you deal with it. And at some point, you have to say thank you. At some point, because, and this is what I want, I hope I can articulate this. This is what I want everyone to know is within those sad moments, angry moments, justifications of judgment and storyline is energy that wants to be released and allow your genius of your heart and soul energy to occupy. Because we need every single person, I believe. Everybody's here for a reason. Everybody's here and has a huge genius gift that is just waiting to unfold like a bud in a flower. And I'm just looking forward to seeing how this all plays out. I mean, this is one of those times of history that we just are in new frontiers.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. I think there's great opportunities to be had if you understand the principles involved. And if you point the finger externally, you're missing the point totally.
Well,
Totally.
when you
Yeah,
point,
yeah,
these
yeah,
guys are pointing back.
yeah. So there's three fingers pointing back, and I call that the ism. I self me. I
Oh,
self me. And it was never about alcoholism. What they say is the alcohol's in the bottle, but the ism's in me. And it's basically, it's something, and people don't like this word, but it's all about egocentricity, and we are, whether we like it or not, we're programmed to be egocentric, to try and get into a position of power, to make as much money as we can, to get as many possessions as we can, blah, de, blah, de, blah. We're almost like programmed into sort of, just grabbing at everything that passes by, really. And I know that now. I live quite a simple life now, quite frugal, actually, and I'm not chasing money anymore because I thought money would buy me happiness. I've had money. I tried to kill myself, so that didn't work, right? Relationships, I've had a few relationships. Once again, for the first 2 weeks, this is the person. I've met my soulmate. And after a couple of weeks, they go, oh, I've made the same old mistake again. And then so material possessions can't fill the gap because it's a spiritual gap. And it can only be filled by unconditional love. And here's what I've found out is unconditional love does not come from humans. It comes through humans. We don't make it, but we can be channels, if you like, to allow it to come through and do its work through us. Now that could sound a bit religious, but I think some religions have got the right idea, right? It's basically get out of the way and be done to by love. And that's the way I see it, really.
that's beautiful. And so, could you talk a little bit about self-love in that whole formula? Because that's where I really see this emergence happening as people are starting to wake up and go, I thought that served before, but if I love myself, that doesn't serve anymore. Could you talk about what you know about accessing self-love or your experience?
Yeah. My experience was I was a gross people pleaser. I'd been trained as a good Roman Catholic, Irish Catholic lad to help other people and to forget myself totally physically. And I can see it's the wrong way round, because unless you actually know how to care for yourself, I'm talking about imbalance now, physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. If you don't know about self-care, I don't call it self-love, self-care, then you can't understand how to help somebody else. And most of the time, the best way to help somebody else is to let them get on with it. And people don't want that, because I was like an ambulance chaser. Oh, that person needs my help. You know what I mean? I'd be running after them. This is what you need to do and stuff like that. One of the biggest things, I'm going to say a joke here, but I'm going to use the N word. Is everybody ready for this? N word. Okay. No, that's what the N word is. Get used to it. Start saying it more. That's what I had to learn, because I was afraid to say no to people in case they thought badly of me, right? And the whole thing is, I have a person that sponsored an AA. He said to me, but how do you then feel about yourself, Joe? Well, I loathe myself. I hate myself. Well, what is it that's preventing you from being rigorously honest? And I said, I'm afraid. What will they think of me? Kathy, it's massive. That thing to want to please other people is a great big handicap as far as I can see.
And I think that that's part of the change that we're going through right now. We have role played, you as a man, me as a woman business owner. I had to have more male attributes and worldview than female worldview. And
Yeah.
we're so out of balance with our divinity once we take on those roles. And it's not someone else's fault. That was the game
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
play. And now the game is changing so that we can have more loving, honest, and real. I prefer to be around people that are going to be honest, even if it's somewhat abrupt.
Yeah.
Because you know where you stand rather than wishy-washy.
Well, I look after a group of medical people. I'm still involved in postgraduate medicine,
Uh-huh.
and I'm supervising consultant physicians who've got loads of people under them, how to be nicer, but how to deliver feedback in a
Oh,
way that doesn't create too many antibodies. And it's simple things like, if you ask somebody, just tell me in your own words, what do you think about this situation? And what do you feel about it? Now, if somebody asks you to be honest and tell them, if they get upset by it, that's got nothing to do with you, right?
right,
That's your emotions that you need to look at. And it's
right.
it's it's massive, you see, because in medicine, especially the British Medical Association, they have to work from a medical script. There's no creativity involved in that. They just work from a piece of paper or on a computer, and they regurgitate the answer that's fed to them. But that's changing now. Loads and loads of medics that I work with are trying to get out of the health service and
Huh.
go into lifestyle medicine now, you know. And it's massive, the switch, because they're all stressed, right?
Right.
It's the normal story is people get stressed. There's no one to replace them. So the people that are left get more work to do. They start making more mistakes. All the medical indemnity stuff comes in. They get afraid that they're going to lose. It's massive,
Yeah,
absolutely massive.
it's a cycle. Well, all of these systems are going to change, but they're right in the middle of it. And again, when we talk about frequency medicine and all the other light and sound and all the frequency, even breath, what you do is this wonderful breath work. You know what? And you run. I mean, the thing is, you're giving yourself a chance to clear the space and create a new painting, right? It's a whole new masterpiece can be built. But if you keep building the paint on the same canvas, it's
Yeah.
not it's not going to turn out as well. And
No, I
and
think,
we're in.
sorry, Kathy, I think the important thing that I've learned is that if I let my head manage my life, nothing works, because it's a standard and a set of expectations to work towards. If I allow my intuition to guide me and manage my life, if you like, then everything seems to fall into place effortlessly. And I have a website called, I'm still working on the construction of it. It's called effortlessness.com, you know. And so I'm going to, in the next few months, I'm going to sort of soup that up and make it look a little bit more professional. It'll be simple, but professional. And where I feel I'm going now is because I'm still mostly involved in academia and things. Kathy, I'm 70 years of age. I should be well retired now and stuff. But there's so much happening in my life. There's no time for me to sit down, and I'm enjoying it most of the time.
Yeah.
Sometimes when I get physically tired, the old narky Joe comes back in, you know. And when I feel him trying to sneak in, I know I have to withdraw then and go and start looking after myself then as well.
Yeah.
So just to go back to it really is I thought I was self-aware, but I wasn't. I was aware of who was doing what with everybody else on the outside, but about myself, I had no clue whatsoever. So I'm getting more, and I only feel like I'm scratching the surface, right? But I'm getting more aware of how my own internal operating system works. And that's all I need to know is how do I function? How do I think? What do I feel about it? And the big rule I do have more than anything else is, above all, try not to harm anybody else. But sometimes you just got to look at somebody and it's harming them. But that's not your problem. My intention every day is, and I say a little prayer to my heart, I say, help me to be helpful and as harmless as possible, please. And give us a clue what you want me to do next. And that's basically my life now, really.
Well, you have to assume that if you're seeing someone that's harming, it's a gift to you as well. Everything in your perspective, in your worldview, is a gift. So you get either it's a test to see is he going to go for it this time, or it's something because you can't recognize it unless you don't have it, right?
Yeah,
So
of course, of course.
yeah. And compassion is the key to all of this right now because we're all muddling through our own stuff to make this a clearer, cleaner energy field. And all of us, especially sensitives, are feeling global consciousness as well as anything in their sphere in their relationships, in their work, or in their family. So I'm very optimistic, and I find it so fascinating how many people are now speaking light language, how many people are channeling. I've been doing stuff since I was 8 years old, and I wasn't comfortable telling people until not too long ago. But it's sort of, oh, how did you know that? Oh, I don't know. One of the questions I have for you, yesterday I was talking to a client and I was saying that there's so many decisions to make right now that I want to get out of my head that I'm just testing on. It's like, if I should keep this book, no, that's out. Do you have a way that you test or a way that you could recommend for people that have, like me, I'm downsizing, I'm releasing a lot of possessions and doing a lot of change. I'm working with AI every day. I'm excited about all the changes that are coming up. Do you have a way that you test for yes, no, or tap into your knowing that you could share?
Yeah. What I tend to do is that I don't make decisions unless it's in a neutral space. That's the first thing. And then if I'll ask the question of my intuition, best way to go forward here. And I get almost like a move towards, but I also use, because I do healing as well. And so I'll use a pendulum as well, to rebalance chakras. And sometimes I've sort of got past that stage now, really, because I can sort of feel the energy flowing. And if I get an obstruction, it's like no. And if I get an open feeling. So if I project into the future and I get an opening of my heart, right, and an enthusiastic feeling, that to me is generally, right, the way to go forward. That's how my intuition guides me. The other thing is as well is what I've learned is intuition will give you actions to take in a sequence that won't probably suit your head, Right. So the head will jump in and try and block it down, but the heart opens it up. So it's to learn to live, it's to go with the flow, literally from the heart. But I've done all that sort of kinesiology and stuff like that, really. But I found that the best way for me is if I just drop everything into the middle of my heart, get the feeling of flow, then use my imagination, everything seems to go with it. And I get a sort of feeling of, well, you can go that one, and there's another one there that's quite similar, so you can have a choice there, and then I'll come over here and get, you know. So it's, I suppose, more than anything else, is to develop your own sensitivity. The only thing about developing sensitivity is for a moment or two, you can become very intolerant because it's so overpowering as your senses expand further, really. So we have to develop tolerance to our own intolerance, if you see what I mean. And the way we do that is by letting go, letting go, letting go. So I don't know whether that's made sense, but there's so many different things that that work for people.
Well, I think you've talked about trust and you've talked about belief, and a lot of this is letting that guide us instead of
Yeah.
and trusting that the heart knows that there is a bigger picture, that you have angels and guides and other beings that have been maybe twiddling their thumbs because you're not calling on them. And it's time to maybe check that out and see how you could have assistance in this journey. The other thing that I'm seeing is that courage is the key to a lot of this, is the courage to believe and to tap in. And then, as you said, to negate whatever this is saying, well, you need A, B, or C before you can do this inclination, and just try it. And see how much fun that could be, or delight, that let your delight be your beacon rather than your fear. And right now, the outside world is creating constant fear. And if those boogeymen aren't going to get you, another boogeyman's going to get you. And if you're not afraid of dying, or you're not afraid of the bigger picture,
I feel immortal. I think you get to a place where you know that there's actually no death. There's just transformations into different dimensions. I know that. I haven't learned that through knowledge. It's just a deep feeling that I have,
right?
that I'm basically indestructible. It's not to be stupid, because we can still physically be harmed and stuff, but it's basically to trust and a bit of positive risk taking. And if you make a cock up, like I do, I still make loads of mistakes. I go along and I say, look, I've made a mistake there. I'm sorry. End
Yeah,
of story.
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
not afraid to give something a bash now. Now, if there's something particularly difficult, I have somebody that I share with, and I trust him with my life. I've got a few people like that. I'll say, this is what I'm feeling. These are my thoughts. He won't give me advice. He say, what does your heart say? And this, that. So he always points me back to my own intuition. Otherwise, I become reliant. Now, the only thing about following somebody else's advice is, if it doesn't work, you can still blame them because they told you so. See, so that's why, in the end, the final decision and final choice comes down to me as an adult. And so,
Perfect.
therefore, and I honestly believe this, that the soul will attract to it on a daily basis the stage, the scene, the players, the events, the temperature, everything, to learn the next lesson that it wants to experience. So it works not by promotion, like old marketing, promote, 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 and keep promoting. I think you've almost got to trust it, that what's for you, because it is a cliche, what's for you won't pass you.
Right. Well, it's resonance. That's what I mean.
Absolutely.
You're basically saying, come create a peaceful environment within that can be clear and clean of the aspects that do not serve you anymore, which, it's at a cellular level. So there's lots of them. But anyway, as you clear and clean, more of what's in alignment to you shows up. And then is the fun of recognizing it or not. because you don't recognize it, it will appear again.
Yeah, it will. So there's positive aspects that what's beneficial for you won't pass you, and if it passes you, you've missed it. It'll come round again, smack you on the back of the head, and if you miss it again, it'll hit you a bit harder the next time. And it's people say, it's a funny thing when I'm sort of working with people. It's funny you should say that. I think, oh, here we go. They've got the message this time. But I
Well,
think more it's great is, I mean, the Kabbalistic work I've done is I understood that it's basically about working with the five senses and beyond. So it's to try and sensitize all your senses, because sometimes just the smell can take you in and bring a vision in. So the Kabbalah, in my understanding of it, is really a way to balance everything and to actually reconnect with your soul's purpose. That's how I see it. But I
so
got misled, Kathy, like everybody else. The secret, the book, The Secret, because my head was saying, "Oh, I'd like that. Send me a model that looks like this. Send me a model of a car that." So for a while, I got into that, and I thought, "This isn't working." And so I had a chat with my sponsor, and he said, "No, no." He said, "That's all in your head." And he
right.
said, "Can I say one line in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous? It says, above all, we must reject fantasizing." And it says, because the spiritual life is not a theory, we have to live it. Right. And that was
Beautiful.
basically put me right back to earth.
Oh, that's beautiful. The idea that we create our own reality, there's so much of that in um, the mystical writings from the past and current. Um, and the opportunity to really go and sense whether this serves you or not is what we're talking about here more than anything. We're really not talking about finding a guru or having someone else do all the work for yourself. You get to be the artist of your designing your canvas of your life. And once you realize that, the joy and the adventure can begin.
I agree. And I think some of us have picked tough ones. The first half of my life, it was horrible. I look back and at the time it was horrendous. But looking back now, I just see how useful it is. Because once you've experienced something, you pick it up in somebody else quite clearly.
Mhm.
And that's the thing is, because as I say, tried to take my own life and stuff. People say to me, "Well, I'm thinking of killing myself," and I'll say to them, "How are you thinking of doing that?" And they look at me as if to say, "Which method are you going to use?" And they say, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, I tried all the tablets. That didn't work. Although I don't get headaches anymore, right? I tried to throw a hairdryer into the bath and blew the whole house up, right? And I tried to throw myself off a bridge and someone dragged me and pulled me back. And so, which method? And they think it disarms them straight away. Then. And sometimes it doesn't always work, but sometimes we have a laugh and a joke about it. And then I'll say, well, I just realized I was so unhappy because I was so far away from my true purpose for living. And all I needed to do was be honest with myself at depth, you know.
Oh, that's beautiful. I think the people that do commit suicide are some of the bravest people. I'm not brave enough to even try it. I
Yeah.
never was. So I look at that and go, wow, how could they have the courage to do that? But there's lots of people leaving the planet right now. And there's a lot of opportunity for people to really soul search about their relationships, maybe release forgiveness, and clean up all of that work. Could you talk anything about that? Because I'm sure you're seeing that in your environment. I lost two people last week that are friends of mine. So could you speak anything about that?
Yeah, yeah. There's some students, very young students, 20 odd years of age and all that. So I see that the student population is basically having a tough time now. So I go in and give my talk, and what I would do it as a case study, and say, and this person's done this, and they'll go, ooh, and I'll say, well, how would you help him, and they'll say, oh, we give him some tablets, and I said, okay, well, let's get on to that, and then I'll go, and let's see what he's up to now, and I go, ooh, it's me. And then they all have a laugh and a joke. And then some of them come up to me afterwards and say, well, my son's trying to do this, or my father's in this situation. Can you help them? And what I have to do, Kathy, is I have to almost signpost them to local places where they can go. I call it, if there's something playing on your mind, best get it off your chest. And in the UK, we've been very reserved for a long time, and the men have had to be very strong and not show their feelings and all that nonsense, you know. Well, that's changing now, thank God. So I think what I try and be like a snake charmer is get them to try and release some of this pent up emotion. And once that starts flowing, you know, we have big, strong men and stuff like that crying their eyes out, and I'm encouraging them to do it. And it's a positive thing, you know. So yeah, and also with other things, heart complications and chest complaints, there's many people dying now of heart disease related things, but also chest infections now are massive in the UK, you know. Yeah, and I always see it, and I'm going to say it now, it's almost like we're being poisoned on purpose, right? And I think my big thing is about cleaning up our own act. And what that means is look at the water you're drinking, look at the food that you're eating, try and have it as chemically free as possible. Look at the air that you're breathing in. Try and do something about that. You know, look a bit deeper onto what's happening and trying to keep yourself as clean as possible. You know, I don't know whether that makes sense, but it's not being controversial because to me, we're also responsible for those things as well. So it's taking some time out, reading the labels, saying no, maybe trying to get air pollution reduced in some form, you know, whatever you feel you're guided towards or resonate with.
Perfect, perfect. Well, we are not only metaphysically we're creating our reality, and we chose a lot of the things before we embodied, and then while we're here we still have lots of choices of how to create, as you said, wake up in the morning and you can do exercise, or just even work on your mind, your emotional body,
Yeah,
and work on your own chakras. There's so many things that we have, work possibilities, and to bring love into it, love of yourself, so you can love others, so you can be a loving presence. I'm just amazed at the progress people are making from my perspective of self-love, because that the self-talk has been so bad
yeah,
for
yeah.
for so long.
No, I agree, and I've just come away with talking for somebody, and her self-talk was totally and utterly self-destructive.
Oh,
Everything that she mentioned, I said, could you just think about doing this is, you know, because they do that one, don't they? The actions I took then, I was doing the best that I could with the information and the energy that I had. I
right.
said, can't you let yourself off the hook? I was full of guilt, full of shame, full of remorse and all that. And I said, why can't you just say this to yourself? Do you know what? I'm doing pretty well, really. And just keep saying that, right? No big deal. I'm doing the best that I can. I always have done. And in that way, then, it's almost like the past dissolves and it doesn't come back to nip your ear all the time. So that's what I found with me. I can hardly remember anything from the past. It doesn't mean to say that I haven't got memories, but I'm not engaged and attached to them anymore in a negative way. So as I mentioned before, I'm almost objective about my subjectivity as lessons that I'm learning, really. And the
Right.
other thing about anxiety is nobody knows what's coming up. Anxiety is only linked to expectations of what's going to happen in the future, you know. And that's where mindful breathing comes in. If you become aware of your breathing, right, you can almost breathe away the emotional attachments. It's the out breath that disengages you from it. So if you can learn to breathe it away, give it some space, and then sit there and look at it and play it through like a little film reel, you get a much better chance of understanding what this is all about, really.
Yes, that and mindfulness. I mean, you basically are giving yourself a space to not react from your reptilian mind and react from a whole body experience. And your body doesn't lie. Your body knows. And then go to your heart. What I'm finding is that the opportunities to be around people since the lockdown, there's been so many international groups and an opportunity to find each other and a way to be in conversation like we are about ETs, near-death experiences, spiritually transformative experiences, diet, exercise, mindfulness, all of those things, all those aspects, they're totally open. There is no reason people can't get the assistance and a different perspective of their life and grow and be vital right now.
No, I agree. And I see the ET thing or the angels thing and all that. To me, it's all aspects of a bigger me, really.
That's
It's
right.
not something outside of me because we're all in this together. It's just tuning in, I think, to specific intelligences that can help you, So I have loads of people, on my podcast. I interview people who are having extraterrestrial experiences and stuff like that. It doesn't matter as long as it's helping them to be healthier, happier, and more helpful in life to themselves and others. They can talk to the lamppost as far as I'm concerned. If it's working for them, then the good luck to them. And,
Yeah.
and as I say, Kabbalah to me, that's working with angels and archangels. It
Mm-hmm.
suited me because I was brought up with that type of thing. So that's okay. And
Yeah.
then, because I've spoken light language all my life, really, and that's coming through thick and strong now in all
Oh,
sorts
it
of different
is? Do
tones.
you want to
Oh,
share any?
ja, vi köpte hade Shabby are something that köpte hi. Hesi bro ona something that köpte das. Surya to cheska ma hodet. Mi köpte hod. And see, who is something that köpte khanse. Juren das be urtuchen. Sabiyach do na maksake. See, that comes through, right? But there's deeper tones. One comes through really deep. Now, Kathy, I've done this like gobbledygook all my life, but it seems to work for people. And I don't control that. I just say in my left ear to me heart, if you want to do something through me now, right, to help this person, off you go. Now,
Oh, yeah.
Kathy, I have to say, when I'm doing my medical lectures, this doesn't come out, but it's starting to.
So I wake up a lot of times in the morning and I'm saying something, and and that's just happened in the past year or two, where I'll wake up and go, "Wonder what that was," because I have no idea. I don't know if I'm finishing a dream where I was speaking that language in the dream, because I'm not doing it during regular hours. Although I love the frequency of light language, I love how it's musical, or something. It's so beautiful and really powerful. I have one client that she was working in a medical industry in a hospital, and all of a sudden she started doing light language, and she ended up retiring from it because she couldn't control it. And when she first came to work with me, her husband brought her in, and this was way before the lockdown. And we were in my office, and she just could not stop crying. The grace of whatever this energy was coming through her, she couldn't even fathom. I think it's worthiness. A lot of that thing, she just couldn't handle how beautiful the grace was. It felt like grace.
Oh no, I think that it's grace that's guiding us. I mean, all my life, I haven't told many people this, but when I was about 7, this vision appeared to me of Mary Magdalene or the mother. I've had that all my. See, look, here it is now with me. It's coming, and I've always had that I feel like I'm sort of working for the Holy Mother, Mary Magdalene, Isis, the sacred feminine, you
Mm-hmm.
know. And it's almost like I'm a sort of a protector of the sacred feminine. Although it wasn't always like that. And I've got to be honest about that. It wasn't in my drinking. I was exactly the opposite of that. Right.
Right.
But maybe it's a contrast thing. I had to see that to see how it should be rather than what it was, you know. So I'm not saying that I'm any sort of saint here, but I get this very strong thing. And I've been with people in visions into the south of France with the Cathars, with the Gnostics, ancient Egypt. See, all that stuff. Now, once upon a time, I would have thought I was going back to the psychiatric departments, but I realize now it's almost like you tap into a stream of consciousness, and I just go with it now. And that's with the light language, Kathy. I don't feel embarrassed about it at all now. I don't care, you know, because I'm happy in myself. I'm happy doing this. And people say, I understood what you've just said there. Because they asked me, do you understand what it's saying? I said, I've got no idea whatsoever. But it seems to work with other people.
Right. Well, I always am fascinated when people can do light language and then they translate, because I'm fascinated with the whole thing, and I think I've been following it for way over 10 years. So there was a woman, Judy Satori, that
Oh,
started
yeah.
doing it, and the other thing is that I watched this wonderful presentation here locally where an Arcturian, an American Indian, indigenous person who's also Arcturian, played an audio file that was light language sang by three different beings. And it sounded like the fifth dimension, you know, how their harmonies.
Yeah.
That's what it sounded like. And she said, when we come, we will be speaking this way. We won't be speaking in English. So that really hit me, and I have that recording somewhere. It hit me like, yes, that's true. And the sacred geometry work, yes, that's true. And the DNA activations, yes, that's true. And I don't have to do this.
Yeah. No, I'm the same. I get a sense of, is that made up or is it true? And I get true. Looking at a bit further, disregard that for the moment. I don't disregard anything offhand forever because it might come back next week and have a significance. So,
Right.
but Kathy, I wake up with I've got no idea what's going on, right? So you'll have to show me clearly. What would you like me to do today? I sort of see this energy as an employer, although it's a bigger me, and I get a job sheet for the day, and it seems to be working really well. You
I
know,
love that. I love that. I haven't thought of it that way, but yes, I think that's the trust. You have to totally trust that, and they be excited about the adventure that's going to unfold with that, rather than have to control everything. That's where we're going to. Is like, forget the control. Get clear on what your body's trying to tell you is good or bad for you, and go here. You know, they say this distance is difficult, but
yeah, yeah, yeah. The longest journey from head to heart. Yeah,
20 centimeters or whatever they
yeah.
say. Yeah.
And I think more than anything else is people are having throat problems at the moment because they're almost being forced, and I will say forced, to express themselves from the depth. All the stuff that they've held down, and nobody did that to you. You pushed it down, and now it's coming up because it's behind you and it's pushing it up now. And I think that's when we have to face ourselves to say, yes, it is me. I did do that. If I hurt you, I'm sorry. And then what happens then is it all starts to flow.
Right.
That's where the freedom's coming from, I think, really.
Right. Beautiful. Beautiful. Well, we're at the end of this conversation. We'll have to do this again. Thank you so much. I just love being with you. I really appreciate everything you're doing in the world, and love the camaraderie that we have together. Really appreciate it. Is there anything you want to leave the audience with as a nugget for them?
I'd just like to say I love you like mad. You
Oh,
know how you just sort of click with people. First time I spoke to you and met you, that's the feeling that I had.
yep. Yep. Me
You know,
too.
and I don't try and work it out, it's just a feeling, you know. And I think we linked back in some way to humanity's team, right?
Mhm.
And I
Yep.
think we've reconnected humanities team and the people that I graduated with. We've all got back together again. So that's
Uh-huh.
all seems to come in on a different footing, actually. It's a more hearted footing. So
Right.
that's a good thing too. But just to say to people is what you're looking for, it's not in your head, it's in your heart, right? And when people used to say that to me, I wanted to go, "Bleh," but it's true. It's true. So I do a little meditation. It's called Cradling the Sacred Child, it's called. And if you just imagine that you've got a baby, and if you don't do humans, maybe you've got a pet, something that brings with it a feeling of like cuddliness. If you get that feeling and you just imagine that the heart of the being, right, is synchronizing with your heart. And as you breathe, then you will find that those two hearts will start to beat as one. When they start to beat as one, it's almost like the human and the divine have connected together. And it almost like this is what happens to people is it almost like brings a balance and a neutral and a balanced, peaceful feeling. It's in that moment that inspiration comes in. That's what I've learned. And what you have to do is just sit, make those two hearts beat as one, and just let go and then see what happens next. And if you can start to do that for 10 minutes, just 10 minutes in the day, and then build it up to two 10-minute sessions and then three 10-minute sessions, I swear to you, right, your life will change for the better beyond your wildest dreams.
Um,
Because that's what's happened to me, and that's what's happening to loads and loads of people now. But you've just got to say to your head, no, no, this is my time in here now. So it's almost like you've got to say to your head, don't fight with it. Just say, no, in your place now. I'm not leaving you alone, but I'll be back to you later. How does that sound?
oh, that sounds perfect. And you can feel the warmth of it. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. Well, thank you again, Dr. Joe. I will do this again. This was delightful. Thank you so much. And the audience, please look up in the description of best ways to reach Dr. Joe. He has his own podcast, and he's got a education URL. You've still got a university URL, right?
Yeah. I don't think
Oh,
I'm not
yes.
really looking for I'm not sort of touting for business at the moment because I'm that overwhelmed,
Yeah.
But I think if there's my YouTube account, Getting Real with Dr. Joe, there's
Good.
loads of weird and wonderful stuff on there. So if you want to find out a bit more about me and the stuff I do, that would probably be the best place to go and have a look
Oh,
at.
good. Oh, good. Okay. That's what we'll use then. And
Good.
we're looking for effortless um,
Effortlessness.com.
nest.com.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll look for that coming up too. Thank
Okay.
you, everybody. And thank you. Please like and share this so other people can experience this beautiful work. Thank you.
Thanks.